So now it's time to bring to stage the panelists of the last session, the fourth session. So let us welcome the panelists for this session, Dr. B.S. Sekhon. So Dr. Sekhon is a planning and development engineer with several years of experience working in the development industry with people from diversified backgrounds and collaborative community organizations. So he is an alumnus of this institution, Guru Nanak Dev University, and he holds a PhD in town planning, and he is currently working as planning and development consultant in Melbourne, Australia. In addition, he is also very much into extracurricular activities, and he is heading a lot of social and extension outreach activities in Melbourne and around Australia. Welcome, Dr. B.S. Sekhon. Welcome, sir. Let me now invite Dr. Anupam Khajuria. Dr. Anupam Khajuria joined United Nations Center for Regional Development, Nagoya, Japan in 2014 as a researcher. Earlier, she has been awarded the MEXT Japanese government scholarship and received her PhD degree in environmental engineering from Osaka University, Japan in the year 2010. She has thereafter worked as a postdoc fellow at IISc Bangalore and Tokyo Institute of Technology. So her work revolves around regional 3R and circular economy, and she's going to enlighten us more in this particular session. Welcome, Dr. Anupam. It's a great pleasure to have you with us, ma'am. One of our national speakers and eminent alumnus again of Guru Nanak Dev University, Mr. Rajneesh Sareen. So Rajneesh Sareen works as a program director for Sustainable Habitat Program with the Center for Science and Environment, New Delhi, with working experience of around 22 years on sustainability in the built environment. So he has been leading several programs, research, advocacy, and capacity building initiatives on sustainable urbanization, affordable housing, thermal comfort, resource efficiency, cooling action plan, cities micro action plans, etc. So it's really a privilege to have you with us, Rajneesh. May I invite Mr. Harkaran Boparai. Mr. Boparai is an architect and a serial entrepreneur. He leads the efforts at MapMy House, which is country's biggest network of real estate consultants. His work is helping bringing standardization and more regular work to professionals in the field of design. Welcome, Harkaran, and you are our young youth icon, please. And a very brief introduction to the person who's standing this side of the dais. So this is Dr. Kirandeep Sandhu, and I am the moderator for this session, and I am from Marolondah School of Planning. I'm also a product of this institution, and thereafter I had the privilege to study in University College of London, doing an international degree in international development studies from there, and a PhD in urban and environment planning from Griffith University, Australia. So I'll be introducing to our esteemed panelists the concept note for this particular session, and thereafter we dive right inside. So the session is centered around standardization of skills across different sectors with focus on creation of skilled workforce for sustainable built environment in the real estate markets. Since the morning sessions, we've been, the focus has been definitely on skill development and also enhancing employability of the youth. And in continuation with that, we target to one of the largest sectors of the Indian economy, the second largest employer as well, and that is the construction and the real estate sector. So there have been, you see, paradigm shift in the global macroeconomics, and they predict future growth, wherein the built environment, the context of the built environment shall be led primarily by highly skilled human capital. And this shall be underpinned by mind-boggling technological advancement that has already penetrated deep into all the sectors, and planning and real estate sectors can no longer, remain eliminated for this. At the same time, international city and regional dynamics are aimed at creating more investment towards higher quality of life, which can attract global human capital to live and work in these spaces. So the role of emerging technologies becomes eminent in planning and real estate sector, making it pertinent to adapt to such changes wherein online platforms, next generation app, virtual reality, and blockchaining will have a profound impact on the market. Besides use of three-dimensional building printers, robotic technology applications shall change the face of real estate like never before. So therefore, there is a need to deliberate upon this dimension which is approaching the markets very, very fast, and how we as academia as well as institutions can deal with it. Further, the futuristic predictions reveal a glowing version for the built environment and real estate markets. However, there is another side which also needs to be pondered upon. So the fact of the matter remains that the Indian cities, they are growing at an exponential rate, and the quality of life becomes remarkably below standards. So at this point of time, the idea, the need is also to focus on the people who make the cities, create the cities, that is a low-income group, and how can we also concentrate our activities and energies in order to improve their quality of life and their livability. So we will talk about this as well with the eminent panelists. So at the same time, one cannot and should not ignore the adverse set of predictions in the recent era of global mass layoffs in the private sector, a fallout of extreme predatory neoliberalism endeavors of employing less for more. So can we really afford that in a young country where a majority of our population is below the age of 30 years? I think this is something which the panelists will have to seriously think about. And all this put together in the gamut of climate change, and how ready are we to approach climate change in a proactive manner, wherein adaptation and mitigation programs can be initiated, and the youth are the one who will have to carry forward this change. So we also have a panelist who is going to enlighten us about this. And of course, finally, as I mentioned, Harkaran is with us here today, and he's representing the youth, and he's going to deliberate about the changing mindsets in the youth, as well as how it can be incorporated towards creation of better skilled workforces for sustainable urban and regional futures. So with this, very quickly, I'll move with the panelists. I'll just be there. Hello. Hello. So not wasting any more time, I would like to open the deliberations here. And I'll come to our international speaker for the session, Dr. B.S. Sekhon. Sir, as we have understood, going by the proceedings of the day, that artificial intelligence is here to stay. So could you please throw light on the impact it is likely to have on urbanism, and what are the implications for the job market and the real estate sector, and how can, looking at both the sides, on one side we would love to have the technology to help us, support us, and at the same time we would also like the job opportunities not to be lost. So how can this fine balance be created, sir? Your thoughts, please.
Thank you, Kiran, and thank you all the organizer of this event, especially Dr. Bahel, Dr. Ashwini Luthra, for inviting me from Australia and sharing my experience overseas with the young students of this country. I have seen since last 2 days here in the campus, dreams in the eyes of youth and participant and even the panelist. We are discussing before coming to this, what is the broad aim and idea in the eyes of this youth. The talk since happened today morning from all the panels, I think we are going to talk something which is directly related to all of us, because we are talking something about cities, something about the places where we live, the areas around us, and sometimes most of the places where we are talking, there are a lot of problems. And obviously, the first question in the mind of youth is, while studying in universities, is this AI or artificial intelligence going to kill our jobs? Or is there new opportunities that if we can find the job? From a planning perspective, if I do a lot of advocacy, being an Indian in Australia when we work in planning, and we come from our cities and see different cities, we say and we realize that if India has to develop, there's only one way. It has to be planned, and in the era of digital world where things are changing fast, we need well-structured, classified data layers. A lot of talks have been there about data, but it is the only planning that integrate all the data. When I say planning, because it involves your economy, it involves people, that's a society, it involves your transport, it involves your network, and it involves the future that any place or any city going to happen. So it means AI, which is basically a synthesization of technologies and synthesization of fast changing data to present a result. And here come the role of well-structured data in planning decision making. I can give you a few examples and you can understand that how the world is changing around us. The first focus of this digital world with us is change and shift of focus. Like cities were earlier planned around a node. Yesterday we have a visit to the Golden Temple. That was a node in the history. Later on, the cities were started expanding along the roads or the line of movements. We call it transit-oriented development. But now with AI and this all changing digital scenario, the cities are expanding around fiber networks. And that's why the talk of smart cities come into the picture. Now what will happen when AI is fully implemented? Many countries like Singapore, even in Melbourne, even cities of US and UK, they're adopting the technologies called SAP technologies. The talk we are generating data in AI, cities are going to apply these technologies. SAP means system, applications, and product. So in SAP technologies, we are integrating, first of all, the various type of data related to economy, related to networks, water supply network, transport networks, fiber networks, various types of networks, and then related to the new areas that is going to develop, which is a real estate development. So it means the use of SAP technology is one of the innovative area that Indian cities will have in future, and with the new models of AI, with the new models of integration of technologies, there will be more job opportunities related to this area. Second shift for focus is on the framework of development. Here come the role of government, public sector, and I'm very happy that Kumar Vijay Pratap is sitting here, and we have seen him working in the administration on the other side, and now since he is in the other side of the people where he's representing people, this is the time we have to change the focus. Like from Australian point of view, the change is from bottom to up approach. The bottom up approach means with digital technology, every place, every space matters. So it means we have to disintegrate and reintegrate the cities in a different way to create different societies, circles, zones, and that comes a role of government to involve more innovations, more consultants, more advisors, so from technocrats and social scientists to sit together to create a framework where these technologies can use. Third shift is now the use of extensive internet-based technologies, which is individual-based technologies. Like said in the earlier panel discussion that now you can sit in a room with a laptop with you, and it's likely that job come to you. You can say, I may be wrong, but now anybody can sit anywhere and start video editing. You can be paid for that. The jobs are likely to be individual based, and then you have to create your own digital networks, so it will create a separate network societies which will integrate with each other to share the job market. The fourth parameter that I think Kiran asked about was the real estate market. Now the cities have been expanded along a lot of residential development, commercial development, big offices buildings. The major challenge with the real estate is where are the users? The very most innovative idea with AI is, yes, there are the users. A real estate company in Australia has 100 sites to sell. The moment I sitting here, I select a house, yeah, this is a good house. The company get an information that someone from this location has assessed your property. It means the finding of a user is now innovative based and digital based for a real estate company, which earlier was going door to door, talking to the people, making exhibition. Now that is through the AI technologies, SAP technologies with the innovative models, and they can find that for X property, how many users are interested. And you can find, it means you need to find some designs in such a way that you have to integrate people in your own domain and own network. Second thing comes in real estate is the optimum design of spaces. Now with digital modeling, we can integrate people. Like in a city, we can explain, okay, the government want to develop a city. This is the innovation model. All the 3D modeling, walkthrough, and people now can comment, like 100 people, 1,000 people can comment, yes, this is good, this is problematic, this is wrong. So it means the community participation is very likely to be part of integrated real estate development. It means you should be aware about it, how the cities are going to develop and how someone is going to invest in that area. That is done likely to happen with innovation models. The third parameter with this is filtering information. I think in the last talk, Professor Arya was talking about GPT and other areas, and that is the talk of town in every university, in every city. This, what GPT will bring, and education and awareness. Very fine example to sitting audience I'm going to sell here. How to ask a question to a GPT chat. That is a new kind of content development market which real estate industries are looking forward, how to find an innovative solution to using this AI technologies. I hope my idea of giving this example is that with these technologies there are challenges, but there are a lot of opportunities too. One of the fine example the universities in Australia are doing, and that is my last hint to you, is restructuring your courses and research areas. I think this is one of the way the university students and research scholars and teachers can think about it. For example, a student in one engineering stream is entering in a 4-year course program. The moment he enters, there is a different set of technologies. The student have been taught in 2 or 3 years, like second year, third year, a set of programming skills, technologies, innovative ideas. In final year, after 4 years, when student pass out, some of the technologies changed. Some of the new technologies coming. So universities wanted, train the students with soft skill in advanced learning skills. That's what one of the panelists was talking. We ask questions, how innovative are you? We ask questions, how proactive are you? So it means one of the training period which is on your behavioral training or soft skill training. So this is one integrated area in universities of Australia. So they are reducing their degree duration. They are making links with industries. They are extending the training program so that student can also be part of changing technology, adopting innovative way, and then finding new jobs. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sekhon. I think the points are crystal clear by themselves, and you really structured them nicely. But one thing which brings a sort of a catchword to my mind right now is the use of the term gig economy. I think, Harkaran, you might be familiar with this, because this is a term which is catching up very fast, and it is about the flexibility of workplaces. So whether you're a planner or an architect or an engineer, you could collaborate across boundaries, and you can work and you can take a project, so you don't have to be necessarily associated with any organization or company or anything. And I think it's becoming increasingly appealing to the youth because it gives you a lot of flexibility. I mean, you could be sitting in one remote corner of the world and yet designing a school somewhere in Bangalore or whatever you might like to say. So I think most of the young people here might be very familiar with the new websites, etc., which have really caught fancy imagination, such as Fiverr. So you can use Fiverr for even getting your house designed, because as eligible architect, you can actually put your profile there, you can get a song composed, you can get your poetry translated into multiple languages. So the world has opened up immensely. And the gig economy is going to be the in word, and I think we at academia, I do not know how we respond to this, I mean, to an informal sort of a lingo like this one, but I think we definitely have to come up with more practical solutions and ideas about how to incorporate this kind of a flexibility. I think academia is stepping up for the implementation of the national, education policy, and probably that has already, made some kind of possibilities for incorporating such kind of ideas as well. So thank you, Dr. Sekhon, that was really, really illuminating. And again, talking about the increase of activities in the construction sector, must also bring to our mind the need for circular economy, particularly in terms of utilization of waste, which will be generated by the construction sector as well as other sectors as well. So in this sphere, Dr. Anupam Khajuria has been working. And ma'am, just to ask you, could you please highlight the utilization of the principles of circular economy for the future of work, Industry 4.0 and future innovation? And probably if you have relevant examples, then you could also illuminate us. Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to thanks and appreciate to Professor Bal, Dr. Luthra to invite me for this summit. So let me start with circular economy. Before that, I want to raise from the beginning of the morning, we are listening 3 sessions. So I think for our society, there are 3 main sectors. That's environment, economy, and social sectors. That is the most 3 pillars, we can say, in all over the society, or the resilient cities, or we can say in the smart cities. And from the beginning of this Industry 4.0 or sustainable cities, I think we are putting the sector for the SDG 9, that is industry, innovation, and infrastructure. And this summit is really putting more one step ahead to achieve that UN SDG goals. And come back to the circular economy. I think in the last session, the one of the audience asked about the pollution from the e-waste or the water pollution. So I think circular economy is one of the best principle which enhance the Industry 4.0, as well as we can utilize to reduce the waste. Not only waste, we can in every sector, not only waste management sector I'm talking about energy sector, automobile sector, or smart, like for example, nowadays we are using a lot of smartphones. And in smartphones, we know there have very minute nanoparticles or nanomaterials are inside instead of particles. Nanomaterials are inside like gold, silver, and it's difficult to extract that material. So in Japan, we have one of the company, they have technology to extract that material, so they can use that energy for utilization is a circular form, so that we can use the circular economy sector in increase the Industry 4.0. Like in the morning we talked about is Industry 4.0, 4.0 is reducing the jobs, or we are having the facing problem. So I think if we use the principle of circular economy, it enhances the Industry 4.0, it enhances our green jobs, create more jobs, and which can helpful for our society as well. And another example from the Toyota automobile industry, maybe we all heard about the hybrid cars, and now we are moving towards the electric cars. But when we talk about Toyota automobile industry, they have introduced hybrid cars which have while the driven the car, they have switched the car from the gas to the electric. So they switch the both sides, so then the gas which help to reduce the emission as well, and which can circulate the energy. So this is, I think, the best example which we can compare with the circular economy, and even in the real estate sector or construction site or any other type of the material which we have, the raw material is extinction, so we have to also think about that part as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Khajuria. Indeed, as we move towards our collective urban futures, urban and regional both, The idea is also, while on one side we accelerate the pace of development, it should not compromise with the environmental principles and goals of socio-economic and environmental justice. So at this juncture also to mention that the waste scenario in the country continues to be extremely grim, and the municipal solid waste generation is going to increase tremendously, and a significant part of this is going to be inert debris. So our next expert, Rajneesh, he is an expert on C&D waste management, and in addition to that, he also has formidable knowledge on sustainable built environment initiatives in the reign of climate change and the emerging ecological narratives. So Rajneesh, could you please throw light on these dimensions and try to link them up if you could? Yeah.
Good evening to all of you. And I think it's not about just the India, it's the G20 which is being represented here. It's around, just for the knowledge of all, it's around 85% of GDP, or maybe around 75% of the market, or roughly a substantial amount of population which we are talking to. So what comes as a scenario, and what is on a discussion on environment right now. So earlier the issues and concerns was that people were not taking the ownership of environment. Now the ownership is there. So the new leapfrog which is there, which we are talking about, is the trusteeship. Now what is the difference between ownership to trustee is, the owner owns that and actually utilizes it for the benefit of others in the society. Now this is something which is neither any AI, neither any of, because this is now a new set of behavioral which we are talking about. Now this behavior, whether it comes and resonates from the waste management, coming from maybe all the 6 streams of waste management, coming into the new side of real estate development and the responsible infrastructure which we might be bringing up in future. So this is what needs to resonate very well under that. Now how this is going to resonate until unless there is a initial level of principle embedded in. Already there with. So these principles come from the, you can say, because it's a new set of science, or maybe a new set of behavioral science which is being looked at. So how are we going to generate and make this possible? So which you have not seen it, neither you are prepared, or neither you are really thoughtful about it. So how this blending is going to happen, how these prototypes are going to develop, this is something which opens up a new, why this becomes an interesting field, because there is a lot of potential which comes along with it. Now everything is a new pattern or a format which is given to you. You need to try and work around. Like if I look at 5 years of journey or 6 years of journey of waste management in country, when I started working on waste management, the waste management subjects were there with the chief medical officers in our country. The CMOs used to work on this. The medical doctors were taking. Their perception of looking at waste was more from a disease perspective. They never looked at from the engineering perspective which is there. So when I started my career in waste management, today when I see waste management, we look at from the very different science of engineering under this. We do not look at it as a waste, we look at it as a resource. When I started, it was like more cradle to grave. Today we are talking about cradle to cradle, or rather we are even talking about upscaling of the things. Now the context is very different here. Now the context, it's not a problem. It's a huge amount of opportunity which is opening up now in front of us, which was a problem to us in the past. So that problem has now become an opportunity. This is something which nobody will be able to ever cater to you, right? So this is something which has developed and made a practical sense and feeling in front of you. Now similarly, when you look at the real estate or the new set of constructions which are coming in market. Today we are not talking about a building which is high mass, which is going to develop in front of you. Even, in fact, I was surprised to see a building built in 24 hours or 48 hours in Mohali. So I went and visited that to see that how they actually made it possible. Now, but yes, there is a lot of environmental issue concerns which is going to be there. So because they are new, they may not be very sustainable, but they are not very thoughtfully designed, but they may be into a rush of building up very fast. But definitely there is a new science and openings which are coming up in that sector. So how to bend that into sustainability, how to bring them into the jackets of the requirements, the things are now shaping up in a very different patterns to us. Like for example, when I started, we were doing this penetration surveys to understand what is this material science which is going up. Because when you look at waste, waste is going to come from where? It's going to come what you put into the market now. So any material which has been introduced as a green today, when it becomes waste, does it really becomes a green at that time also or not? Asbestos was introduced into the country as a green waste. today is a hazardous waste to you. So what are we trying to introduce into the market today also needs to be thoughtfully done in a very well fashion. That is where it's about a global economy. It's not the material which we are using in India is going to be produced in India. It's coming from abroad. There are 50 odd, 60 odd technologies which are now being used into construction, which needs to have a sustainability parameters coming along with. So when you have these logical connections in your mind and you funnel them very well, and you look at what is the kind of sustainability and the dimension your country is looking at, that's where the moral science of the trustiness or the trust which is there into your mind, or from ownership to trustiness, this will open up a new horizon of development which we are expecting now.
Thank you very much, Rajneesh. Indeed, the point which you made at a point of time, waste used to be sort of unidimensional, just you had the medical streams taking care of it, but now you need professionals. And it is the right time for you to really open up and acquire these kind of, specialized skills and knowledges, etc., so that you can meet the challenges of tomorrow. And on this note, two quick points I wanted to make here is that when it comes to sustainable built environment, I was thinking, Rajneesh, if you could just very briefly highlight how this might be incorporated into our projects, particularly housing projects, etc., in terms of bringing green technologies, and whether we could also, and what kind of possibilities you see for augmenting the potential of the youth towards this kind of a technological takeover.
Sure. See, the environment is basically a subject of equity. So equity is something which is, it's totally reverse of the nature of humans. Humans do not think in equity profession. If they think in an equity way, then you would not have SOPs, you would not have guidelines, you will not have rules and regulations. So why we need these rules and regulation, and for example in urban planning, the subject, or environmental planning from where I come from, we make rules and regulations so that everybody, every humanity, or every human, or anybody species which is there, environmental safeguards. We try to provide that platform of equity, or equity of the space sharing, or for the environmental sharing with everyone in that. Now, this context, when it comes to the physical development on the ground, it starts losing its context. So moment you start establishing that in terms of, especially for economically weaker section. Now today we see climate change, what is going to do, it's going to, the heat is going to increase. There's more flooding scenarios which we are expecting, so definitely there has to be more water sensitive design. There has to be heat resistance or thermal comfort needs to be embedded. Now India has actually in 2019 brought in a new regulations called thermal comfort for all. Now where we are trying to look at economically weaker section and LIG, especially the people who are unprivileged, they should be provided habitation which are thermally comfortable. Now how you make that happen? That means there is a science of layouts, the land, the material which you use, and as well as various set of technologies which we have been talking so far in terms of maybe the computer-aided designs or whatever. So today it's not about that you develop and then you start thinking about it. So simulations, even today we talk about the wind penetrations, the CFD weight analysis. I think London is the only town which has done the kind of hydraulic designs to understand the wind penetration, how it's going to be there. Because you need thermal comfort for all. That means we are, as it is, naturally ventilated buildings here in our country. 70% or more than that strata in our, at least in housing, works on naturally ventilated. We are not the buildings which works on air conditioning. Now when you work in such kind of environment, or in Africa specifically, the countries which we are, the countries which are in this kind of, you can say the south, we are more on a naturally ventilated. Now when we bring in naturally ventilated building, the whole context of environment and inviting that environment into your structures becomes much more important and prevalent for us. Now how you bring that equity along? Now, if there is an air conditioning guy, the building which is totally air conditioned, what it does is throws the heat into the environment, and environment is on who? The person who's living next to you, he doesn't even create that heat. So similarly in climate change also, what is happening is who's impacted the most is the most unprivileged one. Because what is this, we say vulnerable, if a person is vulnerable based on what? It's exposure, it's basically the adaptability is low, right? So exposure is extreme and sensitivity is very high. So all these three parameters, when they join her, they make a very deadly cocktail into our, especially into the economically weaker section and LIG. So there are policies now needs to incorporate that. So because otherwise if we start looking at only as economic as a dimension, we will never be able to give the equity parameters which is required, that's where I think the basic essence for which I think all G20 countries are now pushing pressures on. That we need to bring up something which is equitable for all, and how we're going to make those standards and the possibilities in future, that's where the answer lies in.
Thank you, Rajneesh. That was really you gave us good insights, and you bring the point of equity back to center stage, and I think that is where the G20 countries really need to work a lot and very hard, and especially a country like India. I mean, we seem to have a very high per capita growth story, but it continues to be extremely lopsided when you look at the disparities in our urban environments as well as rural environments. So on this note, I would like to bring in Harkaran Boparai. So Harkaran is a young entrepreneur, and what we would like to, you to elaborate is, as a person who has gone through the process of, acquiring a degree, and then you ventured out in the market, and you capitalized the market to your advantage, and also you are very familiar with the uncomfortable gray areas, and perhaps you can throw a light on particularly institutions like the university. What are these, how can we take care of these dimensions? And at the same time, how collaboratively efforts, I mean, you passed out, but yet you can fall back to the university. So how can we build those kind of collaboratory efforts in such a way that, I mean, when you venture out there, you are you can be absorbed, and you are also flexible to change, and at the same time your home institutions can give you that kind of a vital leverage and support. Yeah.
So good evening, everybody. Thank you, Bel sir. Thank you, Luthar sir. Thank you, Kiran, for the opportunity. Well, I'll answer your question in two pretexts. First, so after a day full of discussions, we understand a couple of things very clearly. Firstly, that the youth is, of course, the baton carriers of the future as we are moving ahead, and the world is changing at a compounding rate very, very fast. Ma'am, as you mentioned about gig economy, so PwC estimates that we'll cross to $250 billion in the gig economy in underdeveloping macro countries like India or the rest of Southeast Asia. Now, as ma'am, you asked that when you venture out and what kind of systems you have to go through. See, I understand that youth is only as capable if they are put in roles of decision making and if they're put in roles of power. And having myself gone through a journey of establishing a studio and then venturing out into entrepreneurship and establishing a tech startup for real estate industry, I feel there were a couple of two things that were missing largely. As a young graduate, what I felt is that there has to be alignment of the youth with what the industry demands, and that is very, very clear. And that must come in the academic years itself. We cannot expect our youngsters and the people who are studying to, because that will create a lot of barriers. The moment you pass out of the university, there is a whole of an industry which is changing at a breakneck speed. We talk about AI, we are entering into the era of big data. Close to 70 zettabytes of data is created every year in the world now. So where is our worth there? So what I feel, the alignment policies must be very, very clear. So what the industry demands, our youth needs to be very receptible to that. That is where universities can play a role, like establishment of entrepreneurship centers, and then the industry outreach programs are very important. That is number one. Number two is the access to opportunity. There is a lot of talent in a country like ours, and in all G20 nations. As sir mentioned, that we are representing close to 75% of the market, and so the access and the right time access to the opportunity is very important, and that is where the dignitaries sitting over here in the administrative area have, I guess, a very crucial role to play in changing the policies, in changing the system, so that the youth can contribute to the economic changes and to the changes in the industry in the early stages of their careers itself. And all the great economies of the world, we talk about states, we talk about the European nations who are making a mark, we understand that those economies have really empowered their young populace that really took them to a higher strata or as far as the world order is concerned. And we are, especially, I might sound biased, but India today is at that kind of a stage. We are blessed, honestly we're very blessed to have such a strong young population, and that is very, very skilled. Let me give an example. When I started my entrepreneurial startup, so what we do is we connect we have a system, an app-based system, and we connect the real estate consultants in the market to the demand in the industry. So we have a very limited number of licensed architects, designers, landscapers in the country, but there is a population which is unlicensed, but they have a lot of talent in the market. So that skilled workforce is there. How to monetize upon that? And this is just one of the ideas. If we think about this thing, if compounds, and if it keeps on compounding, let's say if we keep on monetizing this, if there's one MapMy House, let's say if we make 50 more systems like that, and if that especially comes from the people in the administrative area, the policy changes, the alignment with the industry, and the access to the opportunity, that will change the game. Because that's the answer.
Absolutely wonderful. Thank you, Harkaran. I think you really hit, the nail right on the head. I would say the country does not really lack in talent or entrepreneurship, and we have young people like you, doing very well. But perhaps a right directive and a proactive environment which can foster youth creativity in ingenuity. So the idea is to create entrepreneurs of each and every one, because everybody has the capability. You just need to have the right mold. And I think we have some really significant takeaways from what you just mentioned. And the idea is to be receptible to the requirements of the industry and to have some kind of extension and outreach programs where constant sort of training and honing of skills can continue to take place. So I think we did have an excellent sort of interaction here, and I think it's right time to bring in questions from our august audience, the youth who are sitting there. So may I open the house for the questions now, please? Would somebody be there with the mic in the back?
Good evening to all of you. My name is Bikramjit Singh, NSS National Awardee from Lailpur Khalsa College, London. My question is that how we can compete to this world, although we have young minds in the country. Mostly they didn't get the chance, or we say the education system is not good. In some colleges, only degree is a piece of paper, and how we can assume that youth will get different mindset that they will to compete the world, and how we can change the mindset of the youth in this regard.
Thank you. The question, I would say it in this particular way, that the youth, they really don't lack in talent or any kind of entrepreneurship. That is number one. Number two, when you say that, the degrees are not useful, or the students have not had that kind of a backdrop or background to develop themselves, then probably they really have to invest in themselves. And a summit of this nature actually wants to encourage the students to come out from that very typical sort of thought process and to venture into a world which is changing, fast changing, all the time. So one has to keep pace with that. And a lot depends upon, an individual. I mean, the same person who studied in a village school, one of them becomes the president of India, and the other might not really be able to make a mark. So that kind of environment has also been understood in context of the student himself. So anyway, I would like our expert, Dr. Sekhon, to respond to this question, because he would be the right person probably. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Kiran. And Maninder, it is a very relevant question. And I think one of the panel discussion earlier, they're talking that 48% engineers are not capable to do the job. From where this idea coming? One of the example I just touched, because just a less time in 4 or 5 minutes. One of the way, like most of the organization who has adopted a systematic data in their process, their documentation process is well organized. They are not looking the person who is highly qualified at high-end marks. They say if you know 50% of the subject, whatever subject you're training, but more important are your soft skills or habits or behaviors. The number one is, are you open-minded to learn? First question. If you don't, second, are you a little innovative or a research-oriented? Third, are you able to work in a team? What will happen if in a team you have a difference of opinion? Will you fight or will you start learn and cooperate with people? So I think why these soft skills are important nowadays in education, because the technology or system around us changing. When we pass out from a university, we may not be taught the way actual industry is demanding. I think that's why Harkaran and even Rajneesh is working to bridge certain technology to enhancing the capacity of the both government organization as well as university organization to retrain the youth so that they get the knowledge, they get the awareness, and they know the strategies that what the organization is looking for. Those who have changed their self and adopted the new way, they are very successful. Okay, thank you.
Next question, please.
So I'm Sanjay Singh. I'm a scientist at the University of Kentucky. So actually, yesterday I was talking to some professor here, and I was talking about the temperature of the Amritsar, and he told that in winter it goes below 0, and in summer it goes beyond 48. So whenever we talk about the climatic changes, we always jump on the agriculture. But I believe that our houses, our cities are very important factors which are going to affect by these changes. So my question is that, how you design your houses or how you design your city to not make a furnace in the summer or not a freezer in the cold. So how will you change? Maybe Dr. Sekhon or Dr. Rajneesh can chime in the two countries' prospects. Thank you very much.
Sure. If I take a context from Indian conditions, we have 5 climatical zones, and if you actually divide that into further, there could be much more than that. But largely, how the country respond to, or the energy efficiency respond to, is when you look at in the buildings, we look at the 5 climatical zones largely. So now your building designs, your structures, and everything needs to go in that dimension. Like even for adaptive thermal comfort, which we are talking, we have standards for all the 5 climatical zones, according to which a building designs needs to be approved at. Like largely, it has been there more for commercial buildings, and now it's there for residential as well. And this is not only a condition which is there in India, it is there in many other countries as well. So your green rating systems, your building codes which are there, they are aligned according to it. Like, but what the problem which we are facing right now is, as you said, the climate change has its own impacts in it. Like for example, Leh Ladakh used to make houses which made of mud. Right? So mud used to correspond to the kind of climatical harshness which was there, or maybe the weather harshness. So the climatical changes which has brought in the liquid precipitation. Now the mud cannot hold to the liquid precipitation there. Now when you switch from that material to something else, there is a huge amount of consciousness and wisdom needs to be embedded along. Because this mud houses is there with you with a wisdom of 200, 300 or 400 years of you can say behavioral responses, the adaptability, and as well as whatever the nuances which was there has been really mapped at, and then you really worked on to a kind of a material which was suitable to you. Now that is getting challenged. Something new needs to come in. Now what is that new which will come in? That wisdom which needs to be inculcated within that short phases actually gives you a lot of slips along. So you try to bring up something which is like robustic, like bring concrete or bring something like that without even looking at any of the variability which is there. So we used to make, for example, the non-homogeneous materials used to be there in our country. Like it's the walling assemblies which we call it. So for example, if I wattled off, if I say it's like bamboo, then mud. So if there's a humidity, the mud will take care, the flexibility is with the bamboo. So we used to sandwich the walls and bring out like this, which adapts to various conditions, which, as you said, there's extreme heat, there is extreme cold, and there is humidity which is there. So our material used to respond to that. But now there is a gym-made stuff which is coming out, the heavy build one, which is concrete. It doesn't sense anything, it just works with the flesh, right? And that comes with a huge amount of carbon input along with it. Now that is where a challenge needs to bring in the sustainability as a dimension. So that's where we are lacking. Our wisdom has never lacked. The wisdom which has brought us to the current answers which were there, which was challenged now by climate change, were very well researched. Today, when we take a leapfrog or we really work or respond to it, we need to really think logical in that. And that's what we have been, or I think this is where we need to really put our science and methods into it.
Yes, thank you, Rajneesh. You explained from a scientific point of view. Since we are sitting here talking more on artificial intelligence and data and other job markets, like I shared two experiences. The city of Melbourne from so many years is considered as one of the most livable city. And being an urban planner, this was always my curiosity to know why is it most livable city? Why not Amritsar? Why not other city? Three parameters are very important in Melbourne's planning and development, and which is a very fine example for cities of India. One is cities are designed with the factor nearness to nature. All the communities, all the real estate projects, all the development is along natural resources, natural bodies, and they're preserved to enhance interaction with the community. That's one way. Second, the cities also expanded along bus and public transport network, which are both fossil fuel based, and end of the day, we have to reduce the energy impact of the development. That's second approach. The third approach is we are very critically thinking and competitively Melbourne central area is likely to be car-free area. We have make like no car zone in certain major roads, and in certain residential areas there is a talk to focus on car-free a community, a neighborhood where there is a no parking space, people cannot afford a car. Actually there is a no need to have a car. So it means we are shifting our focus in urban planning from environment consideration, heat island data is captured, and here come the role of artificial intelligence and database. Like if come to Amritsar or come to any other city in India, create data which generate to understand heat changing pattern or energy impact patterns of different residential areas. Here come the role of universities and other agencies to sit together, create that modeling, create that regulations, create that standards that will define that urban development should be based on heat island, reduce the density, create open spaces, manage the vehicle. Like why not the walled city of Amritsar, we often debate, is a vehicle free. We try to implement the parking area, we try to encourage the people, the pedestrian area, so that we can increase its sustainability, we can increase the energy impact on end of the day from that city. In Melbourne, we believe if we develop one public transport, a train, we will eliminate 300 cars from the road. So it means these are the models, and here come the data analysis technologies to plan a city. So I hope I answered your question. There are various ways to handle it. Yep.
So, in congruence with what Dr. Sekhon told, the planning interventions that we have to do, just something just came to my mind. After we have the data and that AI and everything, we need to have those materials which can offset these effects. And there is so much happening. For example, when Sir talked about concrete, that heavy duty material, so now there is something called agrocrete, that they make concrete from hemp, and there's abundance of hemp out there. That's low density, it takes more space, easier to build, much more cost effective. We're talking about green concrete. So material intervention vis-a-vis the intervention of AI, big data, vis-a-vis the planning intervention is an overall strategy to offset these effects that we talked about.
Thank you, eminent panelists. And I might just add, sir, because in the US there's a lot of work going on straw bale housing. So you actually have the waste which is generated from agriculture fields, and then you recycle it and you treat it with some kind of chemical concoctions, and then it is used back for creating walls, etc. So straw bale housing is a big movement in the US and in Europe as well. So a lot of activities, a lot of work is going on, but I think upscaling is what is required. And secondly, developing that kind of mindset to also adopt those technologies, because that is where we are really failing. And Government of India has actually, they've been, I think, doing quite a lot of work in going in for low-cost housing materials, etc. But the question of adoption eludes us. So that is one thing probably we can learn from Europe also, because now they are going back to those kind of things they used to do long time ago, so that to offset the climate change impact. So this is a very interesting dimension, and I think we really need to work more on this. Thank you. I think we have time for 2 quick questions from the students in the back. So we have plenty of hands, but let's see. Please.
So, good evening to one and all present here. I am Prabnoor Kaur from Data Science Department from GNDU itself. So, what role can education and training programs play in preparing individuals for the changing job market and ensuring they have the skills necessary to thrive in the world increasingly dependent on AI? And also, to what extent will AI enhance or diminish human judgment and decision making in fields such as law enforcement and healthcare? And if this is possible, how can the organizations control the need of human touch in the field of customer services and other industries?
Thank you very much. Sekhon sir, would you like to?
Thank you very much for, I think there are so many questions in that question. You touched various areas. So, like in India, I believe from urban development point of view, use of artificial intelligence is a little new, because we still need a lot of data for planning decision making, number one. Now what will happen, what is required to implement this data, I can explain on that, and you can pinpoint some of the answers on that. Believe there is a R5 strategies. Like number one, the reskilling. The existing staff in various organization need to trained and need to provide some additional skills. Maybe there are new job opportunities, some young people may enter, and some existing staff, has to be trained with new skills. So that's why it's a reskilling, number one, R. Second is need to change the regulations. It's both by private sector and by the government sector. And we need to regulate the use of AI for ethical uses, protecting individual privacies, and many other regulations should come in force on the use of AI also. Because there are technologies that can also search other technologies. So we have to frame certain regulation. Here come the role of government and other bodies or societies or universities to come forward on this. Third is, there is a funding available by government on various projects, but we may have to decide to refund. That's the third R. There's a need to restructure the funding process in some of the organization for implementation of AI-based decision making. The fourth, the factor that affects is the real estate development, where artificial intelligence involves the use of various models. I think for India, it's more on private-public partnership, and that need to redefine the use of AI basically for real estate development. And I think the fifth, which is a very relevant information, right from school education to universities and later in organization when we work, there is a flood of information now. If, like for any event, if even you see news, there are a lot of news. Everybody is a journalist. There are so many social channels, so many videos are coming. We need a training, we need a filter to decide or find relevant information. Universities has to create a platform how to filter the information. There could be technology, how to use AI and how to use X information for a particular job decision making. So the fifth R5 is relevant information training, which should be embedded part of decision making. I hope the various R5 will give you some idea to find answer of your questions. Anybody else?
Rajneesh, would you like to add on?
Okay, it's working. So I think Corona has given you a very good example. How we identified the areas where the maximum disease propagations were happening is basically through the smart data centers. The information, which is the locational characteristics, was attached with it. The disease propagations and how you cordon off those areas was one of the example where artificial intelligence and the locational characteristics and the human population concentrations were worked very well. Now this is something you learned very quickly, right? So this was not there in your subjects. This was not taught to you in the colleges. This is how you learned very fast. How you learn. So you don't need any trainings. You don't need any. It's about intelligent computing which is there in your mind. When you put onto the pressure, You try to come out with the solutions which are there. So this is what needs to be, an environment, inculcating environment needs to be worked in universities. And I think all the ammunition is already there with you guys.
Thank you, Rajneesh. One last question. Okay, yeah, we'll go ahead with you. Please.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Shagunpreet Kaur, and my question is from Harkaran sir. Good evening, sir.
Hi.
First of all, I feel very lucky to have a word with one of the leading Punjab's entrepreneurs. So once going through the blogs from Space 5, I got to know that your deep focus is on design as a story. But sir, I personally feel that in this story, water seems to be a villain. And my question is that how can we save water on a construction site? Because every day, personally also, I see that a lot of water is being wasted while the process of construction. So sir, I want to ask how can we manage this problem? Because tons of fresh water is being wasted every day.
All right. Well, I'm no sir. I'm almost your age. So largely, this can be answered in the context of how construction is largely done. A lot of our materials that we make, they happen to be, water happens to be a mixture to make those things happen. Let's say if you have to make concrete, so you need cement and water and everything else to make concrete out of that. We need to develop products. There are products which are more energy efficient products, and then there are products which are more reliant. So there are a couple of varieties of concretes and cements which will use less than 22% of water which is currently in the market. So that use scale and that will to utilize those materials on a longer term, on a longer arc, not just one time use, not a two-time use, across the fraternity, because we as architects, urban planners and all the dignitaries sitting over here, we make the change happen out there. So if there is that will to utilize the materials, secondly, there has to be research done. Since water is one of our most precious resources, there has to be research done for the embodiment of things which will help us offset the current misuse of water when we are constructing buildings, because the rate at which construction is being done across domains of residential and commercial, it's booming, especially in a country like ours, and across the macroeconomies that we are talking about. So that willpower, that research on the materials, I guess that answers your question.
So like in near future, we're going to be deficit of water. So how can construction be designed accordingly so that we can make houses or we can make buildings with less use of water? Is it possible?
Yes, I will just add what Harkaran said. One thing I tell you, water is never a problem, not a villain in itself. In Australia, we don't have groundwater, we use all the rainwater, and we save every drop of the water. The entire construction is dry construction. We do not use water at all. We use little water to mix cement and put in certain plastering areas. There are innovations, this is what he said, there are materials available, there are construction techniques available. And I'm seeing a lot of Indian building standards like prepared by CPWD or national code standards, national standard going to change, and they have adopted those innovation techniques in the standard. So that's what I'm talking about, reskilling and new education avenues. So they are likely to adopt in near future, and dry construction is a very popular technique all over the world that can be used.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you indeed. Would you like to respond,
In
Dr.
addition to add, it's not about I'm not talking about urban planning about the water, but one example about the water management. Maybe you all heard about the Singapore case. It's very popular case about the new water. They have a new water, which means we are using the human water that they circulate and they use for the next purpose. It's like circular water. So we can use the reused water. We cannot have, because they have a problem with the water. They are covered with the sea. So they are using the new renew water that is called the new water. So for the human waste, we can say the urine, that the water which can be, we can say that reuse for the other purposes. That is the one example. Then maybe you can find more information on that part. Thank you.
Largely in a construction, mostly if you're asking India specific, we do not use fresh water into the constructions. So environmental impact assessment, which becomes applicable to the larger set of the buildings, not a smaller, which is like you and me make it, maybe for our own, that's different. But when you make commercially buildings, you are required to use recycled water under that. That's one. Then under the environmental impact assessment for these bigger construction, you are not allowed to touch the natural streams of the water also. You are not supposed to stop or hinder or provide any kind of resistance to them. That's also another one. Then now the kind of new nomenclature of EIA which we talk about net zero buildings. So it is mandatory beyond a particular size that you are not allowed to even discharge the wastewater. So that means you are actually doing a circular economy within your construction area for water to be so rainwater maybe or recycled water. So both utilization according to the purpose of use. There are like multiple classification of water, fit for drinking, fit for bathing, fit for agriculture and all. So multiple uses, you try to utilize the easiest, closest companion or which is available to you. That's how the trade-off of water balance needs to be proved. So if that is done, then only a project is get approved with. So we are very water conscious country. Rainwater harvesting or the kind of wisdom which you see in Rajasthan was earlier only limited to Rajasthan. Now the whole country is dry with water. We don't have enough amount of water for the population, so we are very consciously moving ahead on that direction. Only thing you may find is in how it's being enforced at. But largely we do have connotations and the methodologies available which deals with this subject now.
Thank you, Rajneesh. Okay, one last question coming from the second row. So Preet, yeah. Excuse me. Can she have the mic, please?
Hello everyone, I'm Sukhpreet from SciComm Project Consultants. So my question is, how can we induce carbon reduction programs into waste management sector? Are there any policy initiatives or any market-based instruments that can be put forward to induce the carbon induction programs in this sector?
Carbon reduction or induction? Sorry.
Reduction.
Reduction. So, see, so far, it's something which any product or material brings to you is the embodied, right, energy. It's a carbon which has been done or spended before the material. Like, for example, this water bottle, which I hate to see, it's landed up on the table. It has been developed, procured, processed, moved, shipped, or whatever, and then landed on the table. So it is an embodied energy sitting right in front of me, right? So when this embodied energy is there, so there is no such parameters by right now we can measure this, right? So the only thing which you can measure is by the economics, the cost which is there. So if you look at the larger bottle, it's cheaper, the smaller one is more expensive. So what is your possible decision in that case? Maybe look for which is little more cheaper to you. So when you buy a material which is coming from a shift from maybe as you say the Italian tiles which we call it, right? So if it comes from where? The name itself tells you that it's coming from, shipped from a longer distance, and the cost is automatically higher. So when you are an architect, you're trying to look at the kind of construction typologies. You may not have right now the rating which can seriously tell you it's recycled or it's like less embodied energy, but the cost will always give you a denominator for it. But unfortunately, there was little concerns which happened onto the costing and taxing and all, which countries now almost settled it. So our recycled products are cheaper than the virgin materials now. And the codes are also changed. Like for example, in our country earlier, virgin materials were written. So CPWD as mentioned here or PWD, they used to work on virgin materials. Now it is called recycle coarse aggregate or recycle aggregates. So their infusion into the type of construction like M15, M25, whatever type of construction you're doing, it is now IS 383 gives you the code, and not only in India, internationally everywhere. So you can bring more recycled products and you can funnel them based on the cost at this moment to decide whether this is more expensive means more carbon emissions coming in. That's the easiest way to bring in.
I will add further from one site specific to, in Australia, the solid waste collection system routing is one of the key factors in development. All roads are designed for the movement of a truck. and the trucks should be not using any fossil fuel. It's mostly electric or gas-based trucks. And their sizes are standardized throughout Australia because all the streets are designed like this. So in fact, then second is segregation at source. Some cities have 7 types of bins. We are using 3 and 4. So that all the process, what Rajneesh is saying, is reduced at the source and in the planning in itself. Okay?
Thank you very much indeed. I think we've had a very engaging discussion here. And I would just like to end on this note, which was highlighted by Dr. Anupam, that whatever we do, at the end of the day, whatever is the outcome should be circular in nature. So what we take from the nature must be processed so that the resource efficiency can be maintained and the burden is reduced. And just a very quick point I wanted to highlight here was that there's a complete movement on ecological toilets, which is going on now, EcoSan movement. So those of you who are interested, please go and look up the EcoSan web page, and you'll get to know how urine and other components from the toilet can be reutilized in a very, very effective manner. So on this note, I hope the youth sitting in this august audience are motivated, and you are there to take on challenges head on, and you will be, there'll be a lot of takeaways from today, and you can use them to creating a better country and a better world. So we'll conclude the session here, and may I invite upon stage Professor Preet Mohinder Singh Bedi and Professor Ashwini Luthra to please honor the panelists.